All right, so I've opened up Substance, and this is pretty much what how it opens up. Okay, so the last I was in the material window, so my material window shows up first. If In the shelf, you can actually so you can see pretty much everything that's available to you in Substance in the All shelf. Okay, and then in here. This is basically project. So anything that's in your project, which is going to be materials or you can bring in a brush for the project or whatever. You can also see all your alphas, all your grunges, procedurals, our actual textures. And this is just kind of like a texture. We can have textures inside of here. Inside, these are just all of our our hard surface normals that we could use for like buttons and whatnot, all kinds of different things. There's an actual skin and all the filters that are available in Substance, all of our brushes, so you can see all of the different brushes. This also has Kyle's brushes from Photoshop, which are amazing to have in Substance as well. And then we have a particle brush, all of our tools that are available to us. And then this is basically all the materials that we have. And so we can actually bring in our own or make our own in Substance Designer. And that's a whole other beast. These are our smart materials. And with the smart materials, they take a second to load actually. But these are just basically many layers, usually for the most part. And these you can actually build from your material in your layers. So if you build out something in your layers, you can actually create a smart material. So you can just basically drag and drop, and it'll actually, if you have that same type of material that's needed for another character, you can just make a smart material from that, and then it's basically just drag and drop, which is really kind of cool. So like this camo is all kind of a bunch of different maps, and even some of these others, right? Just height, blend, there's copper, there's all kinds of really cool metals and other surfaces inside the smart materials, which are really handy. And then you've got smart masks. These are just different kind of masks of how if you want to put masking on some of your objects, like surface rust or different things like dirt, all kinds of just crazy different stuff. Substance Painter is really awesome, and so it's really not as convoluted as it looks. It's fairly simple, but there are some kind of rules you basically kind of have to follow, and there's a number of excellent tutorials with flip normals, and then also Danny Williams, Point Pusher, if you know who he is. He also does a lot of really great intro Substance, and also J.L. Musey, which is another guy that I learned quite a bit from in Substance. He's got some free stuff as well. If you get stuck in the actual Substance Painter workflow, there's a number of, and also Substance, the Substance team at Adobe has a lot of really great tutorials on YouTube that you can follow along with and get really up to speed in Substance fairly quickly. Wes McDermott is one of a proponent for Substance. He actually works for Adobe and does a great job of explaining their tool set, which is pretty amazing. So to basically get started, we're going to bake our character, and so to start with that, we're going to actually just bring in, so we're going to say File New, and with this template, I'm going to just use the Unity HD render pipeline. Okay, so, and you can actually get to that by just going, and most times will be PBR metallic roughness. That's usually where the default lands. So if you want to go with that Unity HD render pipeline, metallic standard. This just goes into Unity really well, pretty easily and fast. So with that, I will select that, and then so the file that we're going to go with, we're going to select our low, so the mascot mesh low mesh. Okay, so we'll open that, and then with the document resolution, I'm going to go with 2048 as the document resolution, so you can go as low as 128 and 4K. So 2K seems to be okay and turns out pretty good. Our normal map format is either DirectX or OpenGL, and I believe my maps are at OpenGL, so we'll leave them at that. And with the UDIMs, you just want to make sure that you check this option, use UV tile workflow. And so this cannot be changed later, which is fine. We just want to make sure that we check that. So we preserve the UV tile layout per material and enable that we can paint across the tiles if we want to. And you can import your cameras. I just usually leave that checked. And then if you have normal maps or baked maps already, you can add them yourself. But we're going to actually be baking our maps in Substance Painter, so we won't have to worry about that. So from here, we'll just hit OK. And this should open up our low poly guy. So currently, this is in a, so right here, we have a, these little icons right here. So this shows us our 3D and 2D window currently. Okay, so and to move around, it's if you hold down Alt and middle mouse drag, you can actually just pan. Using the mouse wheel up and down, we'll zoom in and out, and then also you can Alt right click, we'll zoom in and out, or the mouse wheel, either one. And in the 3D viewport, if you hold down Alt and left click, you can rotate around. Alt right click is zoom in and out, and Alt middle is going to be your panning. Okay, so with that, we can actually see in this, so right here, this 3D, 2D, this is saying that, so F1, if we hit F1, that's going to give us both our 3D layout and our 2D layout. If we hit F2, we'll go to just a 3D view. Okay, so we can see our 3D view, and if we hit F3, we'll go to just the map, and we can see our basically our UVs that are laid out. So with this is going to be our body, and this one below here is going to be our face and hair. Okay, so with that, if we go back to F1, we can see both views. Okay, so with that, we can actually also go to perspective and orthographic view. So if the hotkeys for that are F5 and F6. So F5 is going to be our perspective, and F6 is going to be orthographic, which is going to be basically be flat. So we get pretty much a straight on flat view of that. So if we hit F5, we can go back and get our perspective back. And that can also be right here. You can just click on these or just hotkey. So F5 and F6. And this one is going to be constrained rotation or free rotation. So with that, if we actually have our, I like to have just to leave this on free rotation. And so from here, we can actually just rotate free. Okay, so I'm just going to frame that. And free rotation, frame. Oops. There we go. All right, and then this is our render button. So this will actually render, put us in a render view so we can actually see, and you can actually rotate and zoom and do all that here as well. So if you hold down shift, you can actually go to a snap. It'll snap to your, so front side, you just keep rotating around. So if you hold down, there you go. You can actually get some interesting, so once you see your material and whatnot. So to turn that off, you just hit the camera, turn that off. Okay, so with that, we're actually going to get started on getting started here. So with actually to bake our texture maps, what we want to do is actually, I'm going to go to perspective view, and 3D, 2D. All right, so then I'm going to frame. All right. Actually, I think I want this to be constrained rotation there. And then perspective. There we go, that's what I want. It's under constrained perspective. And then we can just frame. And we can just hold down shift. And now we got our view back that we want. Okay, so from here, we will go, so this is our texture set list over here in this area. And this is going to be our layer system where we'll start building up our textures in the layer view. So to bake, we're going to go to our texture set settings. So when you go to texture set settings and we go to the top map, where the main shader that we're going to start with, and if we scroll down and we can see all of our channels, right? So we have base color, height, roughness, metallic, normal. If we want ambient occlusion, we just need to add that to the plus, and we can say ambient occlusion. And so that gives us our ambient occlusion right there. And so from here, we'll just leave these all how they're set, and we will go to a bake mesh maps. So when you click bake mesh maps, so first thing we're going to do is change our output size to 2048, which is the same size that these maps were set to. And then we will actually select our high poly mesh that we made in Zbrush. And we also have our high. Okay, so we have the underscore high, which is the way we want. And from here, this should load up here, which is fine. And then if we scroll down here, we can actually go to under anti-aliasing. I want to turn that to subsampling 2x2, which is going to soften our line so it's not harsh and blocky. So anti-aliasing is basically just it's a softening of the pixels. Okay, and then under match, what we want to do is match by mesh name. So that's why we have our underscore high and underscore low. And if you just kind of hover over this, you can see what exactly. So it's saying choose which mesh method is used to match the low and high resolution geometry which we have. So that's what we're using. And if our suffix was different from low and high, say it was LO and HI, we would just change that here. So it would be underscore LO underscore HI for high and low. But mine I have named out fully, so low and high. Okay, so with that, and we will be making a normal map, a world space normal. I don't think we'll be making an ID map, so we won't really need that ID map. Ambient occlusion, yes, we want that. I actually will bump this up just a little bit, and then also the min occluder distance as well. So I think that's pretty much, and then we'll leave the curvature, the position, and the thickness. All right, so with all that, we'll just go ahead and hit bake and see what that gives us. And so you can see that it's going through and taking the high and the low poly. I can already see that there's some funkiness going on with the eye. So usually when you make your eyes, you almost want to separate the eyeball out, and it's just for that reason. Sometimes the eye gets put in with the normal, but we can actually fix the normal and the AO map as well to take that out of the eyeball, or anywhere else that we have some weirdness going on. We can actually fix those in the maps inside Substance. So with my computer, it's kind of working. It's working. Does a pretty good job with baking all these maps in a fairly efficient way. You can kind of see that it's basically baking down all that information from the high to the low. So just patience here, and we're almost done. And then we'll move on to starting to talk about how we're going to drop our textures down onto this character. So we can see that there's a little bit of weirdness going on right here too, which we can fix. So it's at 100%, which means it's done. And we can actually go in and see where some of the weirdness, so there's like some weirdness going on right there. Definitely with the eye. Overall, the head is pretty good. There's a little bit of weirdness, and it did a pretty good job right there. A little bit of weirdness right there. So we can kind of just take a look and see it did a pretty good job. There's some little bit of weirdness right here too. We can fix that in the map. And under here, the belt doesn't look horrible. It's just a little bit, there's a little bit of weirdness. The normal came across pretty good for the threads down the pants. We can fix this in the map. And also the shoes, they look pretty good. There's some weirdness going on in here, but we can fix that in the maps. But overall, it looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with the bake. It's not perfect, but this is stuff that can be easily painted out fairly quickly. So with that, I'm actually going to just save the project. And so we'll go to the folder. So 3D Gen Toolkit is the folder that I'm actually working in. So with this, I'm going to make in the main 3D Gen Toolkit folder, I'm actually going to make a new folder, and I'm going to call that Substance. Alright, so we'll just call that Substance. And so anything that we do inside of this, I'm just hitting F5 just to update my folder. So in that Substance folder, we'll name this mascot texture, and the save type is SPP, but we'll just let Substance do that. So we'll save this, and so now we have that mascot texture under, and so we can also see that we have two normal maps, that's what the 2 is coming from. So it's got the body mat and the head mat. Okay, so that's why we can see both of those. There's 2 maps inside of there. So with that, we will go over to our layer. Okay, and we'll get started on the texturing.